Hey, what's up guys? I'm Steve Wells, and it has been a minute since I uploaded a video. And that's because I've been running around chasing after this guy. So hopefully he stays asleep until I finish recording this video, and hopefully we'll be out running with him in the near future whenever he's old enough. But today we're not going to be talking about running with dogs. We're going to be talking about the Altra Paradigm 5. So if you remember, a few months ago I did a review of the Paradigm 4.5, and I feel like I've been doing a lot of 4.5 versus 5, that kind of videos lately, so that's not what this is going to be. Although I am going to be touching on some key differences between the two shoes that if you like the 4.5 you may or may not like in the 5. So since this is a full number update, it's going to be pretty significantly different than the last version. So although they do kind of keep the same DNA behind the shoe, it's going to serve the same purpose. There are some pretty big differences between the two. If you're interested in checking out my video on the 4.5, which you may be able to find on sale right now, you can click this link up in the corner, take you right to it, and you can check that out as well. So if you're familiar with Altra shoes at all, you know they've all got that foot-shaped toe box, so gonna be nice and wide out here for those toes to splay naturally in the end. They have gotten rid of the marketing term zero drop, and it's called balanced cushioning now, but it's going to be the same thing, flat from front to back. Your heel's not going to be elevated at all like it is in most other running shoes. The Paradigm is going to be one of their guidance shoes is what they call it, so not really a stability shoe, but kind of fills the role of a stability shoe in their lineup. So it's going to have this guide rail that runs along the edge, not like Brooks guide rails where they have like a different foam and all of that. It's actually just going to come up around the side, hold you in the middle a little bit more. They also have these stabilipods, which are these denser pieces in here that are going to help with stability in the shoe as well. So if you're interested in a little bit more information about that, I'll leave a link up here to a video that I shot for Altra lately that you can go through, and they have their entire lineup, and this is in there. You can click the timestamps down in the description, go straight to it, and they'll go into tech specs a little bit more in depth about this shoe and each of their shoes in their lineup. So without further ado, let's get into some pros about the Altra Paradigm 5. One thing that I love about Altras in general that is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but is not something to be scared of either, is the zero drop or balanced cushioning. So that means that you're not going to have that heel elevation, which kind of encourages more of a midfoot strike instead of encouraging that heel strike, which my running form, I usually do more of a midfoot strike. So whenever I'm in a higher drop shoe, it makes them feel kind of clunky on my foot, which even though this one is kind of a beast, doesn't feel super clunky on my foot. I think because of that, along with a couple other things. Another pro, like their toe box. Again, not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but that extra room really does help prevent problems for me when it comes to crushing my toes in there. Is going to, over time, help with strengthening your feet and that kind of thing, because you are going to be engaging that big toe more as you're running than you would in a typical kind of pointed shape running shoe. So a big change that they made between the 4.5 and the 5 is that they got rid of this knit upper, and they're going with this mesh now, which for me is a pro. I do like mesh typically, depending on the knit, more than a knit upper. I find it breathes better. I was having some kind of weird breathability issues, which you can watch my other video and I'll talk a little bit about that in the 4.5, but I don't think that's going to be a problem ever. I haven't run in the cold in this one yet, but I don't think that's going to be an issue in the 5 because of that mesh. I also find that knit uppers tend to kind of stretch a little bit over time, and I tend to end up with my laces pulled all the way together. I do have kind of a lower instep, so it's kind of a lot of volume to start with for me, and then over time as that knit stretches, it just doesn't fit right anymore, which that extra volume is a little bit of an issue in this for my foot. However, it's not going to stretch quite as much, I don't think, as the 4.5 did. So my next pro is kind of a silly thing I talked about in the video about the 4.5, and people were commenting down below saying that they had the same problem as me, so I'm not just going crazy. And that is this lettering that is on these stabilipods. It's kind of raised, and I would sometimes kick myself a little bit and end up scratching myself with that lettering, which kind of sucks. But they heard us out on it. They smoothed out those stabilipods, so they're still gonna be there, but they're just not gonna have that raised lettering like they do in the 4.5, which I'm happy about. I did see someone commenting about taking a file and filing down that stabilipod lettering on the 4.5, which I haven't done yet because I haven't been running in this shoe too much since I did the review. But if it was my daily trainer, I would definitely consider doing that on the 4.5. But that's not a problem we have to deal with anymore. My next pro is the kind of dynamic stability guidance system that they have. I actually find that it works really well for me. So if I run in a traditional posted stability shoe, I tend to start to have issues with knees and calves and even hips and stuff sometimes. However, if I run in kind of a lighter stability shoe or something like this, it tends to work pretty well for me. If I do a longer run in a neutral shoe, I tend to start to have problems as well. This shoe is kind of cool because if you're running with a neutral gait, it's not going to mess with what you're doing too much, just because of the nature of the guide rails and the pods and everything. But if you are overpronating, so as you get more tired further into a longer run, it will start to engage that guide rail a little bit more, give you a little bit more stability as you need it, which I've found works pretty well for me whenever I'm going out on a longer run. My next pro is they got rid of the kind of inlay things that were on the inside here that were starting to peel out and cause problems on my 4.5s. They don't have this kind of weird overlapping thing anymore that was also starting to peel out in my 4.5s. They have actually a similar inlay thing in the new Hoka Arahi. I'm not sure if they had it in the old one or not. I'll have to check, but mine actually started peeling out in that one as well. So I feel like that's just kind of a thing we need to do away with at this point, because all of mine just pull right out of the shoes after, 60 miles of using them, which is kind of crazy. My next pro is no blisters. So the 4.5, I think again it was kind of that inlay thing that's on the inside, and just the way the material on the top bunched up here was giving me pretty bad blisters. Even over like 2-3 mile runs, I would start getting a hot spot. If I pushed it to like 5 miles, I would start getting a blister. After I broke them in a little bit, that wasn't as much of an issue. That kind of went away. But I didn't have that problem at all in the 5. I think maybe because of the mesh, getting rid of that inlay thing. But I haven't had any blister issues, any hot spots while I've been running in the 5, even when I'm doing a little bit longer runs in them. And my last pro is a word that you would not normally hear associated with a shoe in this category, and that's responsiveness. So it's not going to be your Next Percent, your Hyperion Elite, your Saucony Kinvara Escalante even, but for how much cushioning it has, I think that it's a pretty responsive ride, and I think that just comes from that Ego midsole material, that more responsive, bouncier foam, along with that lower drop, that zero drop, and it's not flexible, but it is for the type of shoe that it is, how built up it is. So while I'm not going to be doing 400s on the track in this shoe probably anytime soon, it is a more responsive max cushion shoe. What are you doing? Get down from there. I'm trying to do something. All right, we're starting to lose him. Let's go. So let's talk cons. So my first con is this shoe is heavy. So if we throw it on the scale, 14.3 ounces. So even if we compare that to the Paradigm 4.5, that's 11.2. So gained 3 ounces there. Now granted, that other one, the 4.5, is a 11.5. This one's a 12, but that's a lot of weight gain there, and you really do start to feel it after a few miles in this shoe. My next con is the looks of this shoe. So the 4.5 is by no means a beautiful shoe. However, the colorways that it comes in are kind of cool, and it's not terrible. But the 5, I think, is kind of super ugly. So I'm not crazy about this color. I haven't seen the other colors that it comes in, but with like this kind of overlay on the toe box here with this mesh and just the shape of it, I don't think there's really any way to make it a good looking shoe. Yes, it's functional. Is it beautiful? They did fill in this gap on the guide rail here to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. How much that did for the looks, I'm not really sure. My next con is probably going to be a con for a few people. I don't really mind too much, and that's this heel collar. Doesn't have much structure to it. I don't really mind. I think that it's better than the 4.5 just because it's a little more kind of fitted to your foot. But that might be something that some people have a problem with, especially in that kind of more guidance, stability-ish shoe category. Hey. You see him in the background over there? All right, he's going crazy. I gotta wrap this up. So, in conclusion, I would say that this shoe is going to be good for kind of your recovery days, maybe. It's a little heavy for what I would want on a recovery day. Probably going to be your longer runs, although it is a little heavy for that as well. So if you don't mind the weight, I think that this is a pretty good shoe in this category for that kind of responsiveness while giving you that kind of max cushion and that lower drop, that extra room out in the toe box. So if you're doing 20, 30, 40 mile days, or if you just want something that's going to absorb a little bit more impact as you're coming down, maybe if you're a little bit heavier, I think that this would be a pretty good option for you. When it comes to 4.5 versus 5, I would actually recommend the 5 over the 4.5, even if you can find them on sale. So while it is a little bit lighter, is going to be probably a little bit cheaper right now. I would probably go 5 just because of the fit of the heel, just kind of the fit of the entire shoe in general. That mesh I prefer, and those smoothed out stabilipods, I guess, not a huge deal, but definitely a little bonus there. So I hope this review was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe while you're down there, and I will talk to you guys next week.